In this explainer, we're diving into a really powerful psychological theory. It's all about how our core sense of self gets built, and, more importantly, what happens when that building process gets seriously disrupted, leading to something we call borderline personality disorder.
So let's start with a huge question, maybe one of the biggest. Where does that feeling of you actually come from? I mean, your identity, your personality. We kind of just take it for granted, right? That it's always been there? But it hasn't. It has to be built, piece by piece, from the ground up.
And here's the wild part. The theory we're looking at today says the entire blueprint for who we are is drawn up in this incredibly short, critical window, the first 3 years of life. That's it. Just 3 years to lay the foundation for a lifetime.
Which leads to the real question, doesn't it? What happens when that blueprint is damaged? When the foundation is laid with cracks in it? Well, this is where our story really gets going, as we explore the psychological fault lines that can shake a person's entire world.
The framework we're using is called object relations theory. Now, don't let the name throw you. Objects here doesn't mean tables or chairs. In psychology, an object is a person. So the whole idea is that we build our sense of self based on our earliest relationships. We create these mental maps of other people, and by doing that, we slowly figure out who we are as separate individuals.
And the person who really drew this map for us was a psychologist named Margaret Mailer. She spent years observing infants and their mothers to outline what she called the psychological birth of the human infant. It's a step-by-step guide to becoming you.
And here's her roadmap. It starts in an autistic phase, moves into a symbiotic one where the baby and mother are sort of merged, and then begins this long process of separating and individuating. We're going to walk through each step, but I want you to pay really close attention to that last one, the rapprochement phase, because according to this theory, that's where everything can change.
So let's start at the very beginning. For the first 2 months, there's not really a self there at all. The infant is in this bubble of pure instinct. The world is just a wash of sensations, and there's no real difference between a person's touch and the feel of a blanket. The wiring for conscious experience just isn't online yet.
And right away, you see the stakes are incredibly high. The theory proposes that if an infant gets stuck here, if they can't progress out of this phase, it can lead to autism. The core issue being a fundamental inability to ever really distinguish a person from an object. It's a failure at the very first hurdle. Then, something magical happens. A connection. The baby smiles, and a social world flickers into existence, but it's a very blurry world. In this symbiotic phase, the infant and mother are experienced as a single unit. There's no me and you, there is only we. It's all about getting needs met inside this shared, cozy boundary.
Now, if development gets stalled here, the theory links it to psychotic disorders. And it kind of makes sense, right? If the brain never learns to build a solid wall between your internal reality and the external world, things can get really confused. What's inside and what's outside remain dangerously mixed up.
Okay, so now the real work begins. This next phase is the main event. The long, tricky process of breaking away from that oneness to actually become a separate individual.
This happens in a couple of smaller steps. First, the child hatches. They start peeking out at the world, realizing, wait a minute, mom is a separate person. And that's when you see that classic fear of strangers kick in. Then comes the practicing phase. This is when the toddler learns to walk and is just intoxicated with their new powers, toddling off to explore, but always, always looking back to make sure their home base, their mother, is still right there.
And this brings us to the most critical, most volatile stage in this entire theory. The rapprochement crisis. The toddler has tasted freedom, but now a terrifying new awareness is starting to dawn on them.
So the toddler is caught in this massive internal conflict. They realize they're actually small and vulnerable at the exact same moment they most want to be independent. The fear of being abandoned becomes overwhelming. So to cope, their brain simplifies everything. The world becomes rigidly black and white, good or bad, no in between. To handle this chaos, the child uses a powerful defense mechanism called splitting. The mother who is loving and meets their needs is the good mother. She is perfect. The mother who is frustrating or unavailable is the bad mother. She's awful. The child's mind literally cannot hold both ideas at once, that they're the same person. And this applies to their own self-image too. They're either good me or bad me.
And this, right here, is the theoretical root of borderline personality disorder. It's what happens when a person fails to navigate this crisis. They get stuck. The developmental process freezes, leaving them without a stable, integrated sense of who they are or who other people are.
The symptoms of BPD, then, are seen as direct echoes of this unresolved crisis. That intense fear of abandonment, the chronic feelings of emptiness, the unstable identity, and that classic tendency to see people as either all good or all bad. It's the rapprochement crisis playing out on a loop in adulthood.
So what would cause a child to get stuck here? The theory points directly at the parent's inability to support the child through this crisis, usually because of the parent's own unresolved problems. In these situations, the child is often forced into these impossible roles they can't say no to. They might have to become the parent's emotional caretaker, or they might become a carrier, forced to act out all the anger or sadness the parent can't deal with themselves. Or they might have to become an actor, playing out the parent's own old traumas.
This relationship is completely inverted. The child's most basic developmental need, to grow up and become their own person, is totally ignored. Their job is to serve the parent, and the underlying message they receive is just devastating. You exist for me. I am not here to provide for you, but you must provide for me and are not entitled to anything of your own. You must be a parent for me.
And to survive this, the child develops what the theory calls a false robot self. It's a compliant, adaptive mask designed to please the parent and, above all, avoid abandonment. But the cost is enormous. Underneath that mask, the true, authentic self, full of genuine feelings and desires, remains buried, stunted, and underdeveloped. So, if a person's development can be stopped in its tracks like this, can the journey be restarted? This theory says yes, and that is the entire goal of treatment.
The goal of therapy, then, isn't just about managing symptoms day to day. It is about going back to that fork in the developmental road and helping the person complete the journey. It's about building the skills to finally achieve a stable, integrated sense of self, to finish the job of becoming a whole individual.
This whole theory argues that our identity is forged in the fire of relationships. And if the damage happens in a relationship, that leaves us with a really powerful, hopeful question: can the healing happen there too? The goal of therapy is to prove that it can, by creating a new, safe relationship where the journey of the self can finally be completed.